Dang. I'm really enjoying this. Like, somehow it feels like Sega's back. At least with regards to Sonic. Frontiers and then this. Solid. I'm very much enjoying this. As a fan of the franchise from its humble beginnings. Humble beginnings, as in, it didn't, like, take over and become more popular than Mario for a short time. But yeah. But yeah, no, this is fun. Very much enjoying this game. So, looks like next time we're finishing this. That's gonna be fun. So yeah, and then, then we're gonna see about returning to some of the more regularly scheduled programming, right? Like getting back into some Warframe and Pokemon Unite and I'm not sure what else. We'll see what things we get into. So change from the funny era. Yeah, see, here's the thing. I didn't hate the joke heavy era like a lot of people did. Because I grew up on the old cartoons of the 90s, the old Sonic cartoons of the 90s. I grew up on Sonic the Hedgehog, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was nothing but goofy. And then Sonic Sat-AM wasn't quite as goofy, but it had its goofy moments. And it had its silly moments. And then the comics, right? The Archie comics started off as essentially just a gag comic. So I was never really against the funny era like some were. In fact, when I first played Sonic Colors, it really reminded me of... It gave me shades of the older cartoons. It reminded me of how Sonic used to be in the Archie comics and in the Sonic Sat-AM. So it felt familiar, right? And I did like how Tails became a bit more independent, right? Instead of just chasing after, behind Sonic's shadow. Sonic's like, didn't you see me? One of those aliens went inside me and I got powered by some weird energy. And he's like, I find that hard to believe. Like, not immediately believing what Sonic said. And kind of being a bit more of an intellectual in terms of, like, not just blindly following, right? So I actually didn't mind the depictions of characters in that era all the time. Like, I found some appeal to it based on other, non-canon media that I had consumed a lot of growing up. So it had a familiarity to it that I didn't mind. So I found something to enjoy in those. Plus, the gameplay of Colors was solid. It was one of the best games of that era, right? So, yeah, I enjoyed them for what they were. Sonic Forces was still mediocre. It wasn't the worst Sonic game. I still give that role to Sonic 06 because of how incomplete it was and how buggy. To this day, I still can't play through Sonic 06. There's just too many bugs. It just ruins the playing experience. And then, Generations was great fun. And yeah, I don't think the funny era was all bad, really. There was something to enjoy if you... I'm a weird Sonic fan. Maybe it's because I've experienced so many different forms of Sonic media from the time that it started on the Genesis that I can find something to like out of almost any Sonic game. Almost. Like I said, for Forces, it had a lot of wasted potential. It was mediocre, which was a little more, in some ways, more offensive than Sonic 06, which was ambitious but undercooked, right? It could have been great if the gameplay they had time to shore that up a bit and make it tighter and less buggy. So it was a different form of wasted potential. But aside from that, I found something to enjoy in just about every other Sonic game. I even played through Forces. I bought it, I played through it in about... I blasted through it in like 5 to 8 hours, and then I was done with it. But, I found a little bit to enjoy in it. To be completely honest, I enjoyed Episode Shadows 3 levels way more than the entirety of Forces, but, That's because it was more tightly designed. But and the depiction of shadow was better in that than it had been up till then. So in the meta era or the funny era. So, but yeah, you know, there's something to enjoy in almost every Sonic game that I've played. And I think because I had enjoyed such a wide variety of media in the 90s and early 2000s, from the comics to the cartoons to the games, I was able to have a more varied and kind of easygoing approach to the franchise. So, a more balanced approach, I guess you could say, because I had already consumed Sonic media that was goofy and silly nonstop, and some that was a little more serious but with some moments of goofy, and then some that was more serious, and then, you know, everything in between. So I already was set up to enjoy whatever they threw at me to some extent or another. So, and I think that's a good way to approach most everything, is to try and have a balanced approach instead of trying to compare everything to what came before. Or the way I like to put it, I didn't look at each Sonic game for what I wish they would be. I looked at them for what they were and found something to enjoy in the design. So, yeah, because like a lot of the people who complained about Color's writing, well, the gameplay was so good though. So focus on that, right? Don't let one aspect you don't like about it ruin the whole thing. So, yeah. And you know, for me, gameplay is king. Since I grew up in the age where games didn't even have stories very much, because they couldn't tell very much in the way of stories without having tons of text boxes like the RPGs of the time. You know, the early Final Fantasies and Dragon Quests and stuff like that. Phantasy Stars, which just had a bunch of text boxes because voice acting wasn't a thing yet. So, yeah, you know, just take a more balanced and nuanced approach to things, and you'll find something to enjoy in a lot of things, instead of dooming and complaining like the Sonic fandom or different pockets of the Sonic fandom tend to do. So that's why I don't really call myself part of the fandom per se. I'm just a fan of the franchise myself as an individual because I grew up with them. I don't really engage with the fandom much. And I'm like that with everything. I don't engage with many fandoms because as soon as you get into fandom circles, you start seeing the worst that each fandom has to offer in spades, in full effect. You know, I enjoyed fighting games growing up, but the FGC, I had a little fun with it, but not so much anymore. Undertale's a great example. Excellent game. Excellent lore. Excellent music. But the fandom can be insufferable sometimes. Like, it's just like that with all fandoms. So just enjoy it for what you enjoy it for, rather than what other people try to say, you know, is good or bad about a thing. You know, that's my approach to everything, is I'm going to form my own opinion. I don't fall in line or jump on any bandwagons. I'm, in that way, individualistic to an extreme. Because I don't want my opinions to be colored by others. So, yeah.